Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the title of talk is some symmetric tilings on the plane and closed surfaces. So actually, in this talk, basically, we generalize the notion, we generalize the maps associated with the K uniform tilings on the plane. So the tiling is what? Of course, we are very well, we all are familiar with the tilings because in our homes, in our floor, most of the bigger objects are tiled. So tiling is what? It is a covering of surface by closed figures without gap or overlap. And the use of tiling is, the use is what? Sometimes we have a bigger object, so if we want to port from one place to another place, then we need to tile it, and easily we can port from one place to another place. Another is what? Of course, we can design beautifully any surface by tiling, right? So, and these are the tilings provided by the natures in the examples. When the land is dry, and another it is the home of honeybee. Now, see, the tiling in the study of tilings becomes more interesting when there is certain symmetry. So, in that case, the K uniform tilings comes in the notion, and it is what? It is a tiling of the plane is called K uniform tiling. If it is edge to edge, its tiles are regular polygons, and it has exactly K orbits or vertices under its automorphism group or symmetry group. So these are the examples. If we see, first one is one uniform tilings, and see all the polygons are foregone, regular foregone, and the second one is also one uniform tilings. Here, more than one type of polygons are used. However, these are all regular polygons. One is four regular gone, and another is 8 gone. The third one is two uniform tilings. It has two distinct type of vertices. Type means local appearance at each vertex. If we see in the third figure, we see, exactly four gone at a vertex, and three consecutive three gone, and two foregone at a vertex. So uh, for all the in the first two cases, the vertices have exactly one orbit under the symmetry of these tilings, and in second case, they have exactly two orbits of vertices under the symmetric group. See, in the last figure, this is not a K-uniform tiles. Although the polygons are regular, however, the tiles are, this tiling is not edge to edge. So these tiles actually, such tiles have been initiated during the Greek period. So it was Kepler in 1619 who described 11 types of one uniform tilings. However, his work was not that much encouraged. So later, Somerville in 1905 he described again, and then basically these 11 types of tilings comes in the audience, comes in the society. So analogous to the one uniform tilings, Crotin he proved that there are exactly 20 types of two uniform tilings, and later Chauvet in 1984 he proved that he find 13 he exactly enumerated three uniform tilings on the plane. And later, with the help of computer programming, Garbage, he listed all the 4 uniform tilings, 5 uniform tilings, and 6 uniform tilings by the computer, and these are 151, 1332, and 673 respectively. So natural question arises: what about the further? What about K uniform tilings for K greater or equal to 7? So actually, in four uniform, 5 uniform, 6 uniform tilings, the computation becomes very hectic. However, if one can make a program which can compute for later cases, then probably we may get the further information. But so far, the K uniform tilings are known for K greater or equal to 1 and lesser or equal to 6. And so almost all the information about these K uniform tilings are given, nicely described by Grunbaugh and Seffert in his books Tilings and Patterns. So these are the examples of one uniform tilings. We see that at each vertex, the local appearance is same. And these are the 22 uniform tilings. Here we have two types of vertices. In other words, here we have two types of local appearances. Now the question occurs, we have talked about K-uniform tilings on the plane. Can we have the similar type of maps? Similar type means locally similar maps on the closed surfaces. So closed surface, I will introduce it. Closed surface means, so a closed surface is a connected compact two-dimensional manifold. So we know a manifold is what? It is a topological space which is locally Euclidean. And that is at each vertex M, at each vertex V of M has a neighborhood which is homomorphic to k-dimensional ball, and in that case, manifold is called k-dimensional manifold. So basically, a surface is a two-dimensional manifold, and a closed surface is a connected compact two-dimensional manifold without boundary. So these are the examples. On the left-hand side, sphere and torus and projective plane. These are the closed surfaces without boundary, and the right-hand side, these are also surfaces, but they have a boundary, so they are not categorized as closed surfaces. So see, the first one is called Mobius strip, and the surfaces with boundary. The first one is called Mobius strip, and the second one is called cylinder. Both the figures, both the mathematical objects are created by rectangular sheet here AB, and if we glue the opposite sides as it is, then we'll get cylinder, and if we twist one side 180 degree and then glue it, then we'll get Mobius strip. Now, with the help of cylinder and Mobius strip, we can construct closed surfaces. So for that, first we'll see how to construct projective plane and how to construct torus. So of course, see, when we have a cylinder, then of course we can identify both the boundaries, upward boundary and lower boundary along the homeomorphism. Then we'll get a torus, which is in the figure. And when we see, now if we consider Mobius band, and if we consider closed disk, so of course Mobius band has one boundary and disk has also one boundary. Now if we glue both the boundaries along the homeomorphism, then we'll get projective plane. So this is the basically construction of projective plane and torus. Now with the help of projective plane and torus, we can construct several closed surfaces. And for that, we need one operation that is called connected sum. So whenever we have two closed surfaces, F1 and F2, now if we remove closed disk from each, not closed, if we remove open disk from each of the closed surface F1 and F2, as shown in the figure, the status patch is what it is. It is a surface without a disk. Now we have two surfaces F1 and F2, and with boundary along the patch, right? So now if we glue both the surfaces F1 and F2 along this boundary, then we'll get another surface that is called connected sum of F1 and F2. So the classification theorem of closed surfaces says whenever we have a closed surface, then it is either a sphere or it is connected sum of P projective planes, which is also called orientable, which is also, see, actually here, the typing mistake is there. If F is a connected sum of P is a P projective plane, then F is called non-orientable surface of Euler characteristic 2 minus P. It should be 2 minus P. And if F is a connected sum of P torus, then F is a called orientable surface of Euler characteristic 2 minus 2P. So, sorry, the typing mistake is there. So, these are the, so basically sphere is a orientable surface of Euler characteristic 2, torus is 0, and double torus is minus 2. And similarly, projective plane is non-orientable surface of Euler characteristic 1, and the Klein bottle is non-orientable surface of Euler characteristic 0. So now we have the notion of, we have the classification of now we have the classification of closed surfaces. Right. So now we'll talk about the map on closed surfaces. So a map is nothing but it is embedding or drawing of a graph G into a surface F such that each component of F minus G is a polygonal 2-disk. And the non-empty intersection of any two faces is either a vertex or an edge. See, in the left side of figures, we have a graph which is embedded two types in a torus. However, this embedding is not a map because we see that F minus is not always homeomorphic to a 2-disk. But in the right hand side, it is given tetrahedron. In fact, it is embedding of K4 on the sphere, and we see that each of F minus G is a polygonal. In fact, it is a trigon. So it is an embedding of K4 on the sphere. Now we are going to define generalization of one uniform tilings, and we name that semi-equivalent map. So for that, we define a phase sequence. So a phase sequence in a vertex in a map. So suppose we have been given a vertex V in a map M, then the phase sequence is given by this expression P1 to the power N1 up to Pk to the power Nk. If N1 numbers of P1 gons, N2 numbers of P2 gons, and Nk numbers of Pk gons incident at V in the given cyclic order. For example, in V, when its phase sequence is 3 to power 6, it means what? Consecutively, 6 trigons are incident at V. In the second case, consecutive 4 trigons and 1 4-gon is incident. So this is expressed as 3 to power 4, 4, and similarly in the last one case. So we say that M is called a semi-equivalent map of type this if each vertex of the map has the phase sequence this. I mean, each vertex has same type of phase sequence. And see, note that semi-equivalent maps are locally same as one uniform tilings, because in case of one uniform tilings, we have only one kind of appearance. So these are the examples of semi-equivalent maps on the sphere. If we see tetrahedron, this is semi-equivalent map of the type of 3 to power 4, because at each vertex exactly 4 trigons are incident. Cube is a semi-equivalent map of type 4 to the power 3, and icosahedral, it is a semi-equivalent map of type 3 to power 5 because at each vertex exactly 5 trigons are incident. These are so actually these are described first by Plato, and later his student Archimedes. He showed that we have also semi-equivalent maps on the sphere which are different from these Platonic solids. Why? Because in case of Platonic solids, only one kind of polygon is used. However, if we allow more than one type of polygons, then such that one kind of appearance is preserved, then we have exactly 13 types of semi-equivalent maps on the sphere. So after this, because see, these Platonic solids and Archimedean solids, these are well known, and these are known from the earlier Greek period. So recently, actually, for closed surfaces other than the sphere, if we talk about the maps, semi-equivalent maps on the closed surfaces other than the sphere, then on the projective plane, it has been just described by Datta and Maiti that there are exactly 10 types of semi-equivalent maps on the projective plane. That is non-orientable surface of electrostatic 1. And the type of what? These are the 10 types. So one example is given 3 to power 5. This is actually semi-equivalent maps on the projective plane. Later, for the torus, they have proved what torus means, the surface of orientable surface of electrostatic 0. They have proved that there are exactly 11 types of semi-equivalent maps are possible on the torus, and similarly on the Klein-Bottle, only 10 types of semi-equivalent maps are possible on the Klein-Bottle. So further, so types are known, types are given by Datta and Maiti. So what we did actually, we have classified such types of maps on the torus and Klein-Bottle, and we have a result that there are exactly 6 semi-equivalent maps on the torus and 5 semi-equivalent maps on the Klein-Bottle, up to at most 15 number of vertices. These are the examples. The upper four figures are the maps, semicolor maps on the torus, and the lower three figures represent the semicolor maps on the client bottom. Later, we have proved, we have classified some semicolor maps on the surface of island characteristic -1. So these are few examples. Now see, as we see in case of one uniform tilings, it has only one appearance. If we see two uniform tilings, it has two appearances. Right? So as two uniform tilings are generalization of one uniform tilings, so the question arises: Can we have the analog notion of semicolor maps? So we will describe that also, and the motivation behind that analog is what? It is two uniform tilings. So we'll define it. For that we need some terms. So for that we'll define link of a vertex. So whenever we have a vertex V in a map M, then of course it has a phase sequence. So phase sequence means we will get phase cycles. Phase cycle means cycle of polygons incident at that vertex. So in case of in this figure, we see that exactly four trigons. So three trigons, then one fourgon, and then one fivegons are incident. So its phase cycle is what? 3, 3, 3, 4, 5. So what is its link? So then if we make the union of all these faces, then it has a boundary. Then we'll get what? It will be a two disk, right? For example, in this figure, we see it is a two disk which has a boundary. And what is its boundary? Boundary is nothing but its cycle. We can start from V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, V7, V8. So this cycle in fact is called the link of a vertex V. So whenever we have a notion of link of a vertex, then we have a notion of phase sequence of its link. So we have earlier the notion of phase sequence. So whenever we have a link of V, then we replace a vertex in its link by its phase sequence, then that is called in fact phase sequence of link. For example, in this figure, this right hand side, this is a map on client bottle. If we see then the link of U is what? This cycle, right? This cycle. And if we see the phase sequence of this link, it is nothing but phase sequence of this, phase sequence of this, phase sequence of this, phase sequence of this, and this. So if we consecutive phase sequences are same, then we'll write in the product form. So we see the phase sequence of link is what? It is 3 square 4 3 4 to the power 6. That is consecutive 2 trigons, then 4gon, then 3gon, then 4gon incident at 6. And we see that. In case of V5, in case of this, we see that its phase sequence of its link is what? This is. And in case of V7, this is. We see that the phase sequence of link is what? This is 3 square 4 3 4 to the power 7. So now we have enough tools to define doubly semicolor maps, which is in fact a generalization of semicolor maps in terms of phase sequences. So what is that? So we say that a map is doubly semicolor maps if it has two types of phase sequences, say F1 and F2. So of course, F1 and F2, these are phase sequences. So they have phase sequence of link. So we say that map is doubly semicolor map if every vertex with phase sequence F1 must have the phase sequence of this expression, and every vertex with the phase sequence F2 must have the phase sequence of this expression. And of course, because the map has only two types of phase sequences, so each Fij is either F1 or F2. So in that case, whenever we have doubly semicolor maps, we denote the type of this map is like this. So see, this earlier map is not a doubly semicolor map. However, it has two types of phase sequences because V5 and V7 both are vertices of same type phase sequence. However, their phase sequence of link is not same. These are not same. But in this case, this is a doubly semicolor map on the client bottom. These are few examples. Of doubly semicolor maps. T means whenever we have T, then it means it is a doubly semicolor maps on torus, and whenever we use K, it means it is a doubly semicolor maps on the Klein-Bottle. These are also a few different types of doubly semi-clear maps on torus and Klein-Bottle. So actually, with my PhD students, we have classified. In fact, we have proved that there are exactly 20 types of doubly semi-clear maps on the Klein-Bottle, on the torus and Klein-Bottle. So yeah, these are the examples of that. Further, we have further classified some of them, and we obtained that there are exactly 43 doubly semi-clear maps on the torus for the number of vertices up to 20, and there are exactly 10 doubly semi-clear maps on the Klein-Bottle on up to 12 vertices. So see, in fact, whenever we have a doubly semi-clear maps on torus and Klein-Bottle, then at least for torus, we can have infinite series. Infinite series means for some infinite number of, for some pattern of infinite number of vertices, we can have doubly semi-clear maps. So it means for torus, we have infinitely many doubly semi-clear maps. These are the, in fact, these are the infinite series. These are the infinite series. For every n greater or equal to 3, for every n greater or equal to 3, for every n greater or equal to 2, we have these doubly semi-clear maps. Now, see, because I mean, we are getting for infinitely many, for infinitely number of vertices doubly semi-clear maps. So we have, there is a question: can we have a Hamiltonian cycle? For example, this is a doubly semi-clear maps on some I think 20 or 25 vertices. Then the dotted line, this dotted line represents a Hamiltonian cycle in this map. So Hamiltonian cycle is what? It is a cycle which passes through all the vertices of the map exactly once. So now, in fact, so actually, Nash and Williams, they conjectured that every 4 connected map on the torus is Hamiltonian. So basically, we have here used 2 terms, connected and Hamiltonian. Hamiltonian, I defined that a cycle is called Hamiltonian if it passes through each vertex exactly one, and a graph which has such cycle, that is called Hamiltonian cycle. Now see, 4 connected means what? See, generally a graph is called K connected if we remove any K minus 1 vertices and yet the graph remains connected. So then that is called K connected graph. Of course, if graph is K connected, it means what? It is also K minus 1 connected, K minus 2 connected, up to so on. So Nash and Williams, they conjectured that every 4 connected maps on the torus is Hamiltonian. So in fact, with my student Yogin, now we have the notion of all the doubly semi-clear maps. In fact, infinitely many doubly semi-clear maps, and we have proved this conjecture for such doubly semi-clear maps that all the doubly semi-clear maps on the torus is Hamiltonian, and in fact, all 4 connected doubly semi-clear maps on the torus is Hamiltonian. Sorry, this would be R. Every 4 connected doubly semi-clear maps on the torus is Hamiltonian. So there are a lot more works that one can explore on the doubly semi-clear maps. Few of them are as follows. So far we have classified doubly semi-clear maps on the torus and Klein-Bottle. However, there are infinitely many closed surfaces. So one can explore such maps for other surfaces. One can explore the classification for other surfaces. Of course, one can talk about Hamiltonicity of such doubly semi-clear maps for other closed surfaces. One can also associate algebraic structure with these doubly semi-clear maps. And of course, there are many more analog notion, or we can apply any. There are so many associated area, many studies on these doubly semi-clear maps. So these are the exactly related references of this work. Thank you for listening this talk.
Thank you, sir. Now from audience, if anyone has any question, they can unmute and ask their questions.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Pratibha.
Sir, actually, because you have delivered a so beautiful lecture on the graph theory, so
Yeah.
might be there is some network issue. I have couldn't hear you completely, but there is the one query regarding the graph theory. So can I? Might be it is
Yeah,
not
yeah, please.
related to you.
Yeah,
Sir,
please.
what I was trying with my one student, we are taking the planar graph. So we want to do work on the vertex coloring.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my question is this: in the planar graph, if we are taking the vertex coloring, so two consecutive vertex can have the same color.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, that is also an interesting area of graph theory. So, in case of planar, you know that any graph can be colored by maximum four color. That is even so far it is a conjecture, four color conjecture. However,
Yes,
it
sir.
has been proved that in case of any graph on the plane can be colored by five colors. That is proved, but for four colors it is a conjecture. Now, in case of torus, I mean, in case of maps on closed surfaces, several results have been proved that any maps on the torus or any maps on the Klein total or some maps on the other closed surfaces, they are exactly that much number of colored. So the work is in progress. So although I am not doing that work, but yes, it is your question is valid, and it is also working. It is also I mean the work is also progress in this direction.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you, Dr. Mahen. Thank
Thank you,
you,
Anand
Dr.
sir.
Ratnesh, for inviting me.
Thank you, Anand sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a beautiful lecture, and thank you for taking out time for us. And we hope this lecture will definitely benefit our audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Pooja.